Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson is an ordained Centers for Spiritual Living minister serving the Center for Spiritual Living Greater Baltimore community as our spiritual director. He has frequently been referred to as a Renaissance man and visionary New Thought leader. As a lifelong learner with a passion for self-development, personal transformation, transmutation, and transfiguration, he lives his bliss as a teacher, minister, author, visual artist, ASL performing artist, mentor, father, grandfather, and more, by giving people applicable tools and practices that enable them to live a more fulfilled life, recognizing, realizing, and materializing their full divine potential. His mission is to live, move, and be an active, which is an acronym, member of society who serves to educate, elucidate, and emancipate people and communities to awaken and empower themselves. Active means authentic, compassionate, transparent, inspired, vibrant, and empowered. And there's no telling what he's doing behind me. Here you go.
Domo arigato gozaimasu.
The stage is yours. You're welcome.
Buenos dias. So, December 2021. Wow. Yeah, yes, Tracy, yes, it is. So, for those who may not know, today's already, like you heard this word mentioned several times thus far today, surrender. And we're going to dive deep into this word, but let's start with surrender is an active verb and requires a conscious choice to move from control into relaxing into the order of the divine. In Chinese, there's a phrase called Wu Wei, which means this and nothing more. It's the state of being actively inactive, or some say inactively active, and tomato. We surrender not into chaos, but into order. Surrendering further, we let go of all sense of separation. Didn't Heather just use that in the spiritual practice? We are not separate from that which is the infinite power and presence we call God. So we let go of all sense of separation and enter into a state of conscious union. In the Hanukkah story, the oil lasted 8 days. After the Jewish people rebuilt the temple, they accepted that the oil would, last maybe for one. Like, we got just enough oil, Tracy, for 1 day, one. And yet it lasted the entire duration. Rather than to try to stretch the oil or otherwise impose their will, the people let go into the reality of the situation, and miraculously, quote unquote, they found exactly the amount that they needed. So there's this idea of when we surrender, we have exactly what we need. And yet this word carries a lot of very interesting energy. But Ernest Holmes says in the Science of Mind textbook, love alone can overcome fear, because love surrenders itself to the object of its adoration. The soul must make a complete surrender of itself to the spirit. Okay, so surrender. Now, oftentimes when in our culture and society, when we hear this word, when we see this word, surrender, we think the white flag, and we think this concept based upon the definition: cease resistance to an enemy or opponent and submit to their authority. And what comes to mind? This idea of war or some kind of challenge, some kind of competition where one person, one group, one team surrenders or forfeits. And in such a case, there must be the winners and the losers. And oftentimes, this idea of surrender brings this belief, paradigm, and consciousness to mind. But let's revisit, what did Ernest Holmes say? Love surrenders itself to the object of its adoration. What does love adore? Love adores truth. Love adores oneness. Love surrenders itself to the very thing that it adores. The soul must make a complete surrender of itself to spirit, surrendering to that which is the truth of God. Now, ultimately, what this is inviting us to do is to step into our power. Step into your power. Step into what is true of, for, and about you. So pause and breathe that in. Because what is this inviting us to do? Ernest Holmes says, it is inviting our mind to swing from inspiration to action. Inspiration to action. What did Tracy say during the prayer works? Treat and move our feet. Inspiration to action. From contemplation to accomplishment. From prayer to performance. This would be a well-balanced existence, to move from the inner to the outer, as within, so without, to move from open at the top and open at the bottom and grounded in the center and acting from that space, as above, so below, as within, so without, allowing this to move us. And yet, oftentimes what we do is, instead of surrendering into our power, we surrender into apathy and stagnation. But let us keep in mind that if we are courageous enough, bold enough, brave enough, audacious enough, whatever word works for you, but we are willing to take that first step. We are willing to be willing to take the first step. Because there is only one step, right? Lao Tzu said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And that one step becomes one step. And that one step becomes one step. The journey of 1,000 miles doesn't happen all at once. One step, and then one step, and then one step. Now, the accumulation of that, yes, might be 4 million, but they only happen one at a time. In the same way, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, look, you do not need to see the entire staircase. All you need to do is one step. Be on the step that you are on, and then take the next step, and take the next step. So stepping into our power happens one step at a time, one thought at a time, one conversation at a time, one act of accomplishment, one act of love at a time. Llewellyn Vaughan Lee says, the inner surrender of love's servant has a quality that is not passive, but is a dynamic participation with the unknown. We surrender to a reality that we cannot understand and are trained to stand in the midst of the emptiness and be available for love's work. Be available. Stand in the mystery. Practicing. What does it mean to be the very presence and power, to be in the very presence of that which is the infinite power? Practicing it moment by moment, training ourselves to stand in, to stand as. So let's breathe for a second, because Ray's getting ready to nerd out for a second. So you see this, and I know many of you like, oh, so in honor of the soon to be released new Spider-Man movie, I want us to reflect back to Peter Parker when he is first imbued with this power of the radioactive spider. And he has this opportunity to stop a criminal that the policeman is chasing. And Peter Parker is like, look, my days of being a pushover are done. That's your job. You do it. You stop him. And so he lets the criminal go past, and the dude gets on the elevator and he escapes. And the policeman is like, what's up with you? Like I said, that's yours, not mine. Come to find out later as the story unfolds that that is the exact same man that murders Peter Parker's Uncle Ben. To which Peter's like, it's my fault. Had I stepped in and done what was mine to do, at which time he realizes, with great power comes great responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. How powerful are any of us? We've heard Jamie sang it, Heather prayed and meditated it. How powerful are we? Tracy said prayer works. Who's the one praying? Because it's not just Heather praying. It's not just Tracy. It's not just Jamie praying, because they are that which is the infinite I am. So when Jamie prays, when Heather prays, when Tracy prays, when I pray, when any of us pray, it is God. It is the universe itself praying. Does it get any more powerful than that? So our invitation is to surrender into what we are called to be. Whatever that power is, surrender into it. Surrender and recognize that there is that which is ours to do. And then one step and do it. Science of Mind also says, Troward says that we enter the absolute in such a degree as we withdraw from the relative. And that we withdraw from the relative in such a degree as we enter the absolute. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? In another way of saying it, based upon Swami Vivekananda, in the book Practical Vedanta, he says, being reminded of weakness does not help much. Give strength. And strength does not come by thinking of weakness all the time. The remedy for weakness is not brooding over weakness, but thinking strength. The relative and the absolute. The absolute, that which God is, that which spirit is, that which the universe is that which is strength, that which is wholeness, perfection, and completeness. The relative says, oh, it's just little old me. In the language of my former spiritual path, I am a sinner, wretched, born into sin. Right. You're with me, right? Somewhere we've heard that message that we are not complete, that we need another person to complete us. We need a relationship. We need the White House with the picket fence, or the house with the white picket fence. You know what I'm saying? You need the 2.3 dogs or the 2.3 kids and a dog, whatever. You need something or someone else to complete you. That's the relative. The relative is the message of culture and society. The absolute is that which does not change. So we move from, we recognize what is the experience, but we step into the realm of the consciousness of the absolute. And in that place of the absolute, we are made strong. In that place of the absolute, we reap the harvest. In that place of the absolute, we are now stepping forward, recognizing, with great power comes great responsibility. What is mine to do? With great power comes great responsibility. What is mine to do? One, recognize, because you know that with great power, it's also in the Bible. To whom much is given, much is required. Tracy, yeah. If I gave you truth, what would be required? Truth. Because she's looking at me like, do you really want me to answer it? I don't know. I can't tell. You wouldn't like my answer. No, I'm glad I answered that. It was a rhetorical question. Well, same thing, but it's a belief in the truth, right? If much is given, what did Tracy's bio say when she read about Jamie? There is the time when the artist expands beyond the canvas. The artist expands beyond the stage. To whom much is given. Jamie recognizes he was given this immense power and privilege to be able to do what he does, to reach who he reaches, to guide and nurture. Heather knows that she was given and is imbued with an embodiment of the power and presence, the word of God made flesh, to whom much is given. And that is why Jamie shares and teaches and nurtures. And that is why Heather leads religious or spiritual rituals and practices and groups and prayers and meditation. That's why. It's the same reason why I'm here doing what I do. We recognize and understand. Now, the invitation is to recognize that for everyone, each and every one who is hearing these words, seeing them on the hands of the interpreter, recognize that you too must be imbued with, endowed with the very embodiment of that which is all that is, because there is only that which is. And to that which is, nothing shall be impossible. To that which is God, to that which is spirit, to that which is the universe, nothing shall be impossible. So what happens when we say, I now recognize much has been given to me. I understand, and I step into my power and do what is mine to do. Does that help us change and transform the world? Yes, because it changes and transforms our own lives. We now reap the harvest in our own lives. We now reap the harvest in our communities. We now reap the harvest in our cities and states. We now reap the harvest of a world that works for all in the country. And then we reap the harvest of a world that works for all throughout the entire planet. But we have to take that step. We have to surrender into it. Swami Vivekananda also says, all the powers of the universe are ours. Ooh, breathe that in. All the powers of the universe right now are ours. It is we who have put our hands before our eyes. We're the ones that cover our eyes. And we cry, it's dark. It's dark, Tracy, it's dark.
Take your hand off your face.
Knowing that there is no darkness around us, take the hands away. And there is the light which was from the beginning. The moment we move them, we recognize and we see. So whatever this is, whatever is covering the eyes, sometimes we like we really do. Like if we're really honest, we like the idea of being asleep because it's comfortable. Think about The Matrix. I know many of you have seen the movie or you know the premise. It's comfortable because one of the characters in the original Matrix, he was, I'm willing to betray them so that you put me back in the Matrix. In other words, put me back to sleep, wipe my memory so I don't remember ever having been awake, and let me live out in this dream world. There are those who, right? Tracy's just looking at me. He's like,
I'm paying attention to everything.
okay, I got you. So let's recognize there is a time for sleep. Self-care says, if you're sleepy, go to sleep. Don't be like the little baby that's like, okay, they're awake. I don't want to miss anything. There is a time for sleep. And there is a time that when the call comes, whatever that call is, don't hit the snooze bar.
Oh, no.
There is you said what?
Oh, no, you got it.
Jason said, oh, no, you got it. And there is a time when the invitation to say awake comes and it is time to awaken. Don't resist. Don't resist. Whatever that is, the moment someone steps to you and says, Tracy, can you teach a class on an intro to photography?
Sure.
Right? Now, a couple of years ago, Tracy would have said, no, I don't know enough. I'm not ready enough. No. And I don't even know if her shore, like, let's be honest, I don't know if her shore was a for real shore.
My shore is a for real shore.
Okay.
Say teacher today.
Okay. Ooh. Right? So the idea is when someone steps forward and says, Jim, I want you to do a TED Talk. Fifi, I want you to teach a class. Nancy, I want you to do this. Sue, can you do that? Jamie, can you perform here? All of this is when the Spirit says, here's the invite. When opportunity knocks, I've already got the door open. I'm standing there waiting for the mail carrier to say, package for Reverend Doctor. Yes, I've been waiting for this. Thank you for the call. I'm ready. Don't resist. When we resist, we are denying ourselves the opportunity to stand in the truth of our power. Don't resist. Do not go back to sleep. Give yourself the opportunity to surrender. Peek if you must. Open your eyes. Give yourself the opportunity to allow, as it says in Acts, to allow the scales that cover your eyes, allow them to fall away. The scale, the shield that says you're not good enough, let it fall away and see truth. The thing that says you're not pretty enough, you're not handsome enough, you're not smart enough, let it fall away and see the truth. Whatever that is convincing you of lack, scarcity, separation, whatever that is, surrender it, let it go, and allow yourself to see clearly. I can see clearly now. The scales have fallen. I can see all truth standing in and before me. I'm going to put one foot in front of the other and step into that truth. So remember, surrendering is not about giving up resistance to an enemy and submitting to their authority. Surrendering is no longer resisting that which is the lie, meaning there is this thing. Remember the story about Yeshua in the desert, and Satan, Lucifer, the lies, shows up and tries to convince him, tries to brainwash him. And rather than fight it, he simply stood in the truth. So don't resist any of this. Don't cling to it. Surrender it. Let it go and submit to the authority of that which is the truth of your being. Submit to love, and let love surrender to that which love adores. Submit and surrender and allow the soul to surrender to that which is spirit, God, the universe. Surrender and allow yourself to recognize your greatness. So when we sit there and we question surrender, what does it mean? Recognize that surrender is accepting that I am powerful. Om Tat Sat. I am that which is the infinite, expressing itself in, through, and as me. I am wholeness, perfection, and completeness personified right now. And I accept that. I surrender myself into it, and I take that step. I practice that practice, and I live from that state. And breathe. Reverend Dr. Ray says, it's just like stepping outside on a very bright and sunny day. We shield our eyes from the brightness of the sun, right? Because it's so bright. I was in the house and it was dark, and I step outside and so it's bright. We also do this when we shield our eyes, our spiritual awareness, from the brightness of our own being. How many times have we turned the dimmer switch to dim our own light? To make others comfortable. So going back to Jamie's bio, how many artists are out there who shrink themselves to fit on the canvas in such small ways? How many teachers in such small ways? How many politicians? Small ways. Ministers, small ways. Practitioners, small ways. We shrink ourselves to make others comfortable. And sometimes we do it simply to make ourselves comfortable. We shrink our own. We blind ourselves to our own. We deny ourselves to our own. To not be called. Because we remember, to whom much is given, much is required. The moment you step out there, people see your light and they call you. When Yeshua stepped out there and was like, okay, so water and wine, dead live, blind see. Okay, cool. Then people got like, what? Hey, is that him? Is that him? And the one woman said, Yeah, that's him. Okay, there's so many people around, but you know what? If I can just reach and just touch the hem of his garment, I can just get that close. So the moment people know of your power and your presence, they are going to email you, call you, ask of you. They are. And that's how we change the world. And there is the opportunity. Don't say yes simply to say yes and let yourself be depleted. There is a time to say yes and a time to say no for your own rejuvenation and self-care. However, having discernment to know means I recognize that I have this power and I'm stepping into it. So that when I am called, I accept the sacred yes. I say no to this because I need to recharge, but my yes is still there. So I say no, not Monday, but I can do Wednesday. Follow where I'm saying. Okay, back to what Reverend Ray said. We are encouraged here to also allow our eyes, our awareness, and presence as truth to adjust to the light and power of our being, and then act as one who knows that they are in light, and to know that you are in light, that which is the very light, the very power, the very presence of all that is. You are it already. You need not do this, or that. You're already it. Surrender into it. The moment you surrender into it, you recognize, I am that. I always have been that. I always will be that. Because there is only that. You cannot be Tracy and God, Ray and God, Heather and God, Jamie and God. There is only God as Tracy, God as Ray, God as Jamie, God as Heather, God as each and every one of us. So you're already that. You're already it. You're already love. Step out and live it. Live in action. Live in service. Surrender to that which is the very adoration of your power, your presence, your truth. Breathe. This week's spiritual practice. Dun, 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 Tracy, dun, 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 dun. 1, journal about what parts of your greatness have you tended to cover up, deny, or downplay over the years. I hope y'all heard that. She said, time to go. What was the motivation to deny, downplay, or cover up? Like, what was the motivation? What motivated you to do that? And what did that, like it afforded you something. The moment I turn it down, the moment I deny it, it gives me something. What was that? Just journal about that. 2, what quote unquote burdens have you carried? And maybe you still are carrying them. Maybe they're things related to work, relationships, finances, family. What would it mean to surrender them? You still do what you are called to do, but what would it mean to surrender them or surrender into them? Just marinate on that. And then lastly, have a conversation with tres personas. Tres personas, 3 people, about what surrendering has felt like and what it now feels like as you consider this idea of surrendering into your power. Not surrendering your power, but surrendering into it. Surrendering all of the lies and misconceptions about your power. Surrendering them. Let them go. Let that stuff go. Let the scales move. And now surrender into your power. Step into it. What does that mean? Have a conversation about it. Now, this week's declaration, if you feel in alignment with it, then say it with me on the second go round. First one, I will read it. I lay all burdens on the altar of divine love. Now, if you feel in alignment with that and you want to declare that as well, say it with me. I lay all burdens on the altar of divine love. Breathe, breathe on the altar of divine love. Breathe that in and allow that to marinate over you, to marinate within you. Hanukkah ends tomorrow, so prayerfully everyone has been enveloped in the energy of and continues because it's still got till tomorrow. So happy Hanukkah to all who honor and practice and celebrate this beloved holiday, this beloved holy day. But for all of us, be reminded of the very infinite power of light as it shows up in, through, and as us. And we allow that power, presence, light, the surrendering of it to be our benediction. It allows us to move into service, to be of service, to continue to do what is ours to do, showing up as love, showing up as light, showing up as joy, showing up as laughter, showing up as God in the world, that we may change, transform, transmogrify every aspect so that there is equity, there is peace, there is food, there are homes, there is love for everyone and everything. That is what is, and so it is. Namaste and blessings. Love you.